The Economic Club of Minnesota's mission is to provide a world-class, nonpartisan forum for national and international leaders in business and public policy to discuss ideas that affect how Minnesota can better compete in the global economy. The Economic Club of Minnesota, engaging the world, strengthening Minnesota.
Hey, I get to introduce Jay Timmons, who's president and CEO of the National Association of Manufacturers, which is the largest manufacturing association in the United States. So, quick confession, I've known about the National Association of Manufacturers for a long time. I've always referred to it as NAM. Now, as I was preparing for this, I got an instruction that we don't call it NAM, we call it the NAM. So as you think about this, I kind of channel the Ohio State University, not the Bieber. Just, you guys know who the Bieber is? Now that was a good joke. All right, you like my follow. Because unlike the Bieber, the NAM is actually a rock star. See, that's a continuation of the joke. Come on. This is like my best material today. It gets very dry from here. So, the NAM is a champion the priorities of the manufacturing industry. They represent 14,000 small and large manufacturers in every industrial sector. This is very important to Ecolab because we provide water and other services to virtually every manufacturing sector around the world except for shoes, and the Ellen Edmond guy's here. I buy from him, he doesn't buy from us. So we've got a lot of customers here: Cargill, Schwann's, Mosaic, Flint Hills, Donaldson, Great River Energy, among others. But whether you are a manufacturer or sell to manufacturers, this is a very important topic, and all of us should care about the health of this sector because it contributes more than $1.8 trillion to the U.S. economy annually, has the largest economic impact of any major sector, and accounts for 2/3 of private sector research and development spending. So a strong manufacturer sector is critical to our nation's economic health. And when we grow, it spurs job creation, which ultimately expands opportunity for people. And without job creation and job growth, we can't have a long-term healthy environment. So the NAM helped to move manufacturing to the forefront of breaking news, national debates, and policy development once again and over time. So it's very clear that the NAM plays a very large role in the U.S. economy, and it's equally clear that Jay is a great leader of the NAM. So Jay is a leading advocate for the nearly 12 million men and women who still make things in America. He educates the public and policymakers on issues that affect this sector. You may have been inspired by his commentary or seen his handsome face on CNBC or Fox News. In just over 4 years as the leader of the NAM, Jay has continued the transformation of what once was considered a traditionally shoe leather lobbying shop into what one publication recently called a manufacturing advocacy giant. Jay has an exceptional and personal understanding of the issues manufacturing companies face. He grew up in a small manufacturing town in Ohio, where his grandfather worked at a Mead plant for nearly 4 decades. He saw firsthand how manufacturing creates jobs and raises the quality of life for families and communities. He also knows Washington well. Before joining the NAM, he served as chief of staff to a Virginia governor and senator, and also as the executive director of the National Republican Senatorial Committee. He was twice named one of Washington's fabulous 50 movers and shakers on Capitol Hill by Roll Call newspaper. That's probably high on your list. Is that right on the shelf as you walk in your office? Jay has said that America's ascent as both a great nation and a great power can be traced to 4 underlying principles: free enterprise, competitiveness, individual liberty, and equal opportunity. Under his leadership, the NAM is working hard to ensure that these principles help shape our national policy agenda. So we're absolutely delighted that Jay has chosen to give his annual State of Manufacturing in the U.S. speech at the Economic Club of Minnesota. After today, Jay's heading out for a 2-week national tour to call attention to the resurgence of manufacturing in different regions and the steps that we need to take as a country. But we're going to hear it here first. So join me in welcoming Jay to the stage and welcoming him to Minnesota. Jay.
Thank you very much, Doug. I appreciate that. I have to tell you that I cannot recall, and I'm fairly sure, that I've never had an introduction that included Justin Bieber in it. So thank you for that very colorful and kind introduction. Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is absolutely fantastic to be in Minnesota. Regardless of the weather, I appreciate your warm welcome. It was nice to wake up this morning to 7 degrees. I know that invigorating temperature is somewhat normal for you all, but I have to say that it was a bit of a shock for my system. But I'm really happy to be here with you today. And I'm also appreciative of your strong commitment, Doug, to the National Association of Manufacturers and the commitment of so many others in this room. You know, Doug is, in addition to being slated to be Jimmy Kimmel's replacement, he's providing some fantastic leadership, not only for the NAM, but also for Ecolab, for the industry, and for our country. So thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you and Tom Handley, who is my board member and on our executive committee of the NAM. So thank you so much for your support of the NAM. I'm also deeply appreciative of the Economic Club of Minnesota's laser focus on making sure that your state competes aggressively in the global economy. It's a legacy that appropriately honors the memory of Ecom co-founder, Congressman Bill Frenzel. He was a great leader for business and one of the great leaders on U.S. trade policy. There's quite an overlap between the NAM and Ecom members, as you might guess. 3M, one of our founding members of the NAM in 1895, Cargill, Taylor Corporation, of course Ecolab, and I could go on and on. I also have a number of my bosses here today, in addition to Tom Handley. There's Joe Pushies, the CEO of Apogee Enterprises. As you know, Apogee's glass, as you may know, Apogee's glass adorns our windows at the NAM headquarters. Also the new Freedom Tower in New York City, and soon the Vikings Stadium. Now, I don't know if you happen to watch contemporary TV, but Apogee's glass is very much front and center on the introduction of House of Cards. So if you haven't had a chance to take a look at that, you'll see this very odd-shaped building. Well, that's the NAM headquarters, and I'm really happy that the glass is very much on display there. Also, Bill Cook, the CEO of Donaldson Company, Bill Buckner, who's the Senior Vice President at Cargill. And then I want to say one word about a tremendous, tremendous leader for Minnesota who was one of my NAM board members, and sadly he's not here with us today. And I speak of David Olson, who was the president of the Minnesota Chamber. And as many of you know, David passed away last summer, and I have to tell you that he was one of the people who gave me such great insight and great advice when I first came into this job. So could we just have a round of applause for David, because he's a fantastic guy. I know he touched the lives of many in this room. And I also want to recognize Bob Kill, who's the president and CEO of Enterprise Minnesota. He's always been passionate about helping manufacturers grow and bring attention to our industry. So thank you all, and thank you all for the NAM members who have joined us today. Now, Minnesota, of course, is home to some of the most recognizable manufacturers in the world. Your state's history is intertwined with manufacturing, just like the story of this great and indomitable country. When we were torn apart, think back, by a bloody civil war, manufacturing helped sew us back together. When we were trampled beneath a devastating depression, manufacturing helped us get back on our feet. When we were tested by a world war, bravely fighting tyranny on two fronts, it was manufacturing that helped arm the arsenal of democracy right here at home, that powered America into a a new era of global leadership. And when we were recently tripped up by the Great Recession and many wondered whether manufacturing in the United States was past its prime, we not only proved the doubters wrong, but we've roared back even stronger. So I'm pleased to report to you today, ladies and gentlemen, on the first leg of our State of Manufacturing tour. I'm pleased to report to you that the state of manufacturing is as resilient and as robust as ever. And that's why that, once again, America is rising. Because you see, America's success depends on manufacturing's success. And I'm so proud to go to work every single day leading the National Association of Manufacturers, the unified voice that advocates for the promise of manufacturing in America. Because I'm proud to be associated with innovators and problem solvers. That's what we do. When manufacturers see a problem, they fix it. If they can't find a solution, well, they create it. That's who we are. And by the way, isn't that the American story too? Manufacturing in the United States has succeeded because our industry and our solutions are grounded, as Doug alluded to, on 4 foundational values, values that also happen to be the foundational and unifying principles of the exceptional country that we love. The first of these is free enterprise, market forces that drive innovation and growth better than any other system ever conceived in the history of mankind. The second is competitiveness, which is our ability to invest and to expand markets and to succeed in a global economy. The third is individual liberty, which is the creativity and the entrepreneurship that is unleashed by protecting, defending, and advancing the basic freedoms that are enshrined in our Constitution and our Bill of Rights. And the fourth is equal opportunity, which is our shared belief that every one of us, if given the opportunity, has the potential to prove that we can contribute to the success of our companies, our communities, and our nation. These values unite all of us, even at a time when our country seems more divided than ever, and they can help us move manufacturing to new heights. Manufacturers in the United States hold fast to these principles because we're Americans with a deep sense of responsibility. We lead by example. Well, don't get me wrong, the sense of duty that we feel is not grounded in patriotism alone. It's also very much about pragmatism. This is very much about economics. Let's look at manufacturing's direct impact on the economy. We're creating more jobs, we're creating more products, and we're making them better than ever before. Every year, manufacturing contributes more than $2 trillion to the American economy, and that's 1 out of $8 in our economy. The nearly 500,000 manufacturers in this state represent 1 in every 7 jobs. Manufacturers have the largest total payroll of any sector, and you're responsible for contributing $37 billion to your state's economy. Yet we can't underestimate manufacturing's indirect influence as well. Manufacturing has the highest multiplier effect of any industry. For every manufacturing dollar that's invested in America, it adds $1.37 to the economy. There's nothing else in our economy that comes close. And a single manufacturing job can lead to the creation of 3 to 5 other jobs in other sectors. That's a pretty impressive return on investment. So you can see why manufacturing has a disproportionate responsibility to keep our economy humming. But there's another side to this coin, and that's what I want us all to think about and also to speak up about and advocate for. All of this good news also means that when policymakers choose wrongly, which you may have noticed happens on occasion, or they don't act, or they sit idle, the missed opportunity costs are higher for our sector. We all suffer when our policies don't match our principles. Chief among these are the four that I mentioned: free enterprise, competitiveness, individual liberty, and equal opportunity. That just doesn't matter to CEOs and workers. It matters to every single American consumer, every American family, every job seeker in our country. One of the most important policy choices that our leaders need to make is about something that I've heard from so many folks while I've been here in Minnesota, and that's on the subject of trade. And here's why. It really doesn't matter what our manufacturers make if we can't sell it domestically and internationally. That's one of the reasons that 3M and others founded the NAM 120 years ago. And today, with 95% of the world's customers living outside of the borders of the United States, we need to be where they're buying. Ask the folks who work at 3M, transforming innovative ideas into ingenious products. 3M's culture of collaboration has yielded $30 billion in sales and employs more than 88,000 people with locations and customers in 70 countries worldwide. This thriving global enterprise doesn't just help keep and create jobs in the Twin Cities, but in Little Rock, Arkansas, and Newark, Delaware, in Murray, Utah, and Northbridge, California, in communities and towns all across our country. And that's a story that is told by companies all across our nation. In Minnesota, international trade supports nearly 755,000 jobs that generated nearly $21 billion in exports in 2013. And of that total, 19 billion were manufactured goods. Customers in 209 countries, even more than we talked about earlier. 209 countries buy Minnesota goods and services, and a smart trade policy is the difference between growing those businesses and, well, frankly, shutting their doors. So time is really of an essence. An aggressive trade agenda, including passing trade promotion authority, would give us greater access to the foreign markets that we need to access. And here's a fact that opponents of trade promotion authority don't like to repeat. Trade supports millions of good-paying jobs right here at home. In fact, one out of every 5 United States jobs depends on trade. And jobs linked to manufactured goods that are exported, pay on average 18% more than other jobs. So the real question is, what are we waiting for? We should have been all over this a long time ago. Trade Promotion Authority, TPA, of course, is a long-standing and it's a proven partnership between Congress and the President that facilitates the negotiation and approval of trade agreements. In fact, every single president since Franklin Delano Roosevelt has had authority from Congress to strike deals and open overseas markets for manufacturers and workers in the United States. And the American people support its aims as well. Poll after poll has found that majorities of Americans of both political parties and across all demographic groups support trade agreements with additional countries to spur U.S. exports and grow manufacturing here in the United States. We also have to seize 2 other important opportunities related to that: the Trans-Pacific Partnership and the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, TPP and TTIP. These ongoing negotiations have the potential to expand U.S. exports and international sales to promote jobs and economic growth. These agreements would open markets with nearly, get this, 1 billion customers. And that covers nearly 2/3 of the world's economy and world trade. We also have to think about a long-term reauthorization of the Export-Import Bank, because it's a necessary step that this Congress needs to take, and they need to take action immediately. The debate over the future of the EXIM Bank boils down to whether we want manufacturers in the United States to win overseas, it's very simple, or whether we want our foreign competitors to win. It's a very simple question. And whether we want the workers of those foreign competitors to swoop in and seize opportunities and seize them away from us. With our global competitors utilizing more than 60 other export credit agencies in other countries, it's really imperative for manufacturers so that they're able to turn to financing opportunities that the XM Bank offers here at home. Otherwise, our manufacturers will soon find themselves at a distinct disadvantage, competing in an international marketplace with the odds stacked against them. Quite simply, a vote against the XM Bank is a vote to support sending manufacturing and manufacturing jobs overseas instead of here at home. It's really that basic. While we're watching from the sidelines right now in terms of trade in the United States, the rest of the world is busy negotiating free trade agreements, dozens of them. Think about this. Every year we sell so much more in manufacturing goods to free trade partner countries than we actually buy from them. $60 billion more. But for countries with which we don't have free trade agreements, we're running a trade deficit exceeding $500 billion. So what does that tell you? We simply can't afford to sit this out or to cede market share to our competitors anymore. Other major economies are already negotiating, as I said, dozens of trade agreements without the United States that could put manufacturers and workers at a significant disadvantage. At a time when the dollar is strong and global growth is slipping, well, we need more trade, not less. Of course, bringing goods to market isn't a challenge only overseas. The slowdown at our West Coast ports that many of you actually have brought up to me here today, well, that slams manufacturers as well. The challenge of managing inventory has forced one global manufacturer with plants in multiple states to actually limit overtime for thousands of its employees in January and February, and in some cases it's eliminated overtime completely, and that means millions and millions of dollars in lost wages and lost opportunity to our economy. So Washington has to act on this, of course. The administration should increase pressure on the parties to resolve the slowdown. But you know, manufacturers have to act too. All of us, all manufacturers, large and small, all businesses and all citizens. Everyone has to encourage the parties to reach an agreement, put pressure on them to return the ports to normal business operations so that we can eliminate the uncertainty that exists right now and keep global commerce moving. So beyond this challenge, too many of our ports, our roadways, our railways and runways, they're getting worse by the year, and they're in desperate need of repair. Just take a drive through most parts of America on roads and bridges that were built for a bygone era. There's so many risks as well. The tragedy that occurred on I-35, the I-35 West Bridge in 2007, I know still is on the forefront of the minds of Minnesotans. The needs of business, both here at home and as we compete in the global economy, demand that the government invest in improving our aging infrastructure. Manufacturers are the most important suppliers to the transit and road building industry, providing everything from engines and machines to barriers and safety materials as well. Then, of course, there's regulations. Today's system is unnecessarily complex and inefficient. It costs small manufacturers nearly $35,000 per employee per year in compliance costs. So, as you know, every dollar that goes to these compliance costs is one that doesn't go into a worker's paycheck, and it comes out of a consumer's pocket eventually. So we have to streamline and we have to simplify the system. We have to increase accountability on regulations, and we must insist on better analysis of the benefits and the costs when they're necessary. And that's important because every regulation, whether well-meaning or not, every regulation increases the cost of doing business in the United States. Now, the NAM represents over 14,000 manufacturers, from multinational corporations to family businesses all up and down main streets everywhere. And you know, I have to tell you, those family businesses often stop me and ask me all the time, how can we make the government understand that those regulations are hurting small businesses more than anyone else? And I get a similar question, as you might guess, on taxes. America leads the world in a lot of ways that we're so proud of. But the highest corporate tax rate on earth, That's really not a distinction that we want to brag about, but it is a problem that needs to be fixed. According to a poll commissioned by Enterprise Minnesota in its state of manufacturing, manufacturers are concerned by the uncertainty in Washington about the budget and taxes. Nearly every business leader in the world wants access to our markets, but every one of them also has to ask, what is the cost of doing business in the United States? Our outdated tax code is turning too many of them away and driving investors out of our country. But you know, corporate tax reform isn't going to do the job alone. We also have to fix the way our tax code treats the many. 2/3 of manufacturers who are taxed at the individual tax rate. So if we raise individual rates, we're raising taxes on the majority of all manufacturers. And the president's proposed punitive tax increases that he announced earlier this week on investments, earlier this week, on investments in small businesses would stifle economic growth. We need smart, meaningful, and long overdue reform by making the research and development tax credit permanent. And we can continue by implementing a pro-growth tax plan with lower tax rates for manufacturers who lead our economy. Lower tax rates that would help us to grow that economy. The NAM's economists have found that this type of a plan would add a full percentage point to our GDP every single year. And that means more investment, that means more innovation, that means more jobs, that means more money in the paychecks of more middle-class working families. The fact of the matter is we're simply not reaching our potential. With smarter regulations and with sound tax policy, we can. Now, I do want to take a look at energy as well, another topic of considerable conversation, because right now, the time is right. Energy that fuels our success as manufacturers and as a country, something that's very much in focus. It's a tremendous moment of great opportunity for us. America has an unprecedented and an incredible global advantage in reliable and affordable energy, and it's driving manufacturing's resurgence. This is a conversation we were not having 10 years ago. In fact, 10 years ago, we were having a very different conversation. So if we're going to keep building on our strength and creating jobs with all the potential that energy represents, we need to focus on several items, including an all-of-the-above energy approach that taps every resource that we're blessed with here at home. It's really the only realistic choice. We can make the United States energy secure and North America energy independent. Something else no one would have said just 10 years ago. You know, manufacturers use 1/3 of our nation's energy supply. So this is one of those problems that we have a very strong interest in solving, as you might guess. Shale gas, the new technologies involved with that, that's just one example of an opportunity that we can't miss. If we develop this resource correctly, we can actually create 1 million new American jobs over the next 10 to 15 years. Getting the job-creating Keystone XL pipeline built is another great opportunity that we need to seize as a nation. So altogether, the combination of oil, of natural gas, of coal, of wind, solar, and other sources, it's going to mean more jobs, it's going to mean lower utility bills, and it's going to mean more growth across the board. America needs an energy policy around which manufacturers can plan for the long term, one that incentivizes, not one that inhibits innovation. So now, there are also a number of other ways to be as competitive as we need to be. And you know, our healthcare system is one of those. We need to reduce costs. We need to increase options. And we need to help employers and employees make informed decisions. Policymakers, well, they need to eliminate the medical device tax, because that tax doesn't just hurt manufacturers. It stifles research and development of medical advances that are designed to keep people healthy and safe. Another issue that we need to focus on is comprehensive immigration reform. It has to become a reality and not just used as a wedge political issue. If we're going to create opportunity for today's workforce and tomorrow's innovators, it's important that we adopt comprehensive immigration reform. And it's not just for that reason alone. It's also because simply it's the right thing to do. We also need to hold the National Labor Relations Board accountable and remind it of its role as a neutral referee. That's kind of a claim that's undermined when it forces through ambush election rules and other misguided regulations that create tension between employers and employees where none exist. And that's why the NAM's Manufacturers Center for Legal Action, which is bringing manufacturers together on several fronts to protect and defend the law, has stepped up to stop ambush elections, and we filed suit against the NLRB's abuse of its authority. So, fair and transparent regulations, free and fair trade, more competitive taxes, 21st century infrastructure, diverse energy options, immigration reform, healthcare and legal reform. The menu is long because the moment, ladies and gentlemen, is significant, not only for manufacturers, but for America. I'm confident that we can do this, and we can do it in a way where everybody wins. Why do I worry about whether our elected officials will get these critical questions right? That's actually a point where people usually chuckle. The reason I worry is because I know that our workers are the best and they're the most productive in the world. Workers like those at Graco, right here in Minneapolis, who I'll be visiting with later today. And I believe that they need to have the best environment in which to innovate, to invent, and to invest. This is not just about reviving an economy. It's also about perfecting our union. It's about creating a new, brighter future for everyone by dreaming it, by building it, and by making it right here at home, as we've always done when we're at our best as a nation. Now, I know this firsthand. Doug referred to this in the introduction. My grandfather left the family farm to stand in line for 6 months during the Great Depression at a local paper manufacturing plant in my hometown of Chillicothe, Ohio. And he went back every single day until he finally got that job that would allow his family to enter the middle class and to have a better quality of life. And I have to tell you, I think about him a lot. I think about him when I think about the future of our industry and the pathways of opportunities for other families that we can create. Manufacturing is all about people like my grandfather. It's about people who stay true to and who rise with the principles of free enterprise, competitiveness, individual liberty, and equal opportunity. And when the world needs America to help make it out of a rough patch, it's manufacturers in the United States who make the things that make that happen. They're the ones who make anything possible. But here's the takeaway. None of that happens on its own. Like any manufacturing process, we need to put the right pieces in place. And that starts with the right public policy. One that advances manufacturing and keeps America as exceptional as ever. The world's best example of opportunity and optimism. We need to generate ideas and designs, calibrate the technologies, and develop the logistics. And all that starts with our business leaders and our relationships with our workers and with each other. And like any machine that makes anything, nothing happens until we push that start button. And that begins with you. And the work that you do, the voices that you raise, the quintessentially American values by which you live. And also through your support of manufacturing in the United States of America. Thank you all so much for giving me the opportunity to to outline the state of manufacturing in America today, right here in Minneapolis. I so appreciate your hospitality, and thank you for giving me a great send-off for the rest of our tour.
We do have time for just a couple questions before we close the program today. So if you have a question, get your hand in the air and we'll get a microphone to you in just a moment. Right over on this side. Identify yourself quickly and then pose your question.
Hi, my name is Bernie Weiss. My question has to do with what role or activities you are pursuing as part of the NAM to help make sure that our younger children have the education to be able to have the skills in order to participate in the manufacturing environment that you're helping to create.
So that's a great question, and it is a similar question to what I get literally all over the country, because we have a workforce shortage in this country. We have 600,000 jobs in manufacturing today that are open that we can't fill because we can't find the people with the right skills to do those jobs. So at the NAM, we have part of our organization is something called the Manufacturing Institute. And we certainly are promoting STEM education in primary and secondary education. But you know, it's more than that. It's about changing a mindset. It's about changing a mindset about what modern manufacturing is all about. You know, I talk about my grandfather, and I'm so proud of him, and I'm so proud of what he did for our family, our community, and our country. But manufacturing today is nothing like manufacturing during my grandfather's time. Manufacturing today is sleek, it's technology-driven, it's exciting, it's hands-on, it allows you to build things that nobody ever thought possible. So our challenge, I think all of our challenge in this room, is to help inspire the next generation. It's not enough just to give them the educational background that they need. That's certainly important. But we've got to inspire them to look at manufacturing as a career choice. More than that, we've got to inspire their parents, because the parents are going to have more influence on a career choice that their children make than anybody else, more than any guidance counselor or any teacher. So here are the things that we're doing at the NAM. We have a program called Dream It, Do It, which is actually being utilized here in Minnesota and other places around the world. And the goal of Dream It, Do It is to give young people a hands-on experience in manufacturing, allow them to see what modern manufacturing is all about, bringing manufacturers into the classroom, but also through our Manufacturing Day program, which is just 3 years old, also allowing young people to come into facilities, and my hope is that we're going to now expand that to bring their parents in as well, so that they can see see firsthand what manufacturing is all about. Last year, this program has grown exponentially. So when it started out, there were a few dozen facilities that opened their doors. Last year, we had 1,650 facilities all across this country open their doors to young people, and we brought 400,000 young people in to see the power of manufacturing. The other thing that the Institute does is it's been working with community colleges to help align curriculum with the needs of manufacturers in local communities, and to develop a set of portable skills, a certification for portable skills that potential entrants into the manufacturing workforce can earn. And it acts as kind of a passport to entry. And we announced that, I believe it was a little over 3 years ago, with the president in Northern Virginia. And it's a program that the administration endorses. And then the third is we're working to get our returning military personnel connected with job openings in manufacturing. So many of them have no idea what their career path is once they come back from service. And a lot of times they don't understand that they have the very skills that manufacturers need. I talked to one gentleman who had returned from Afghanistan, and he said, well, what do I know about manufacturing? I drove a tank. So, well, you know about logistics and hydraulics and electronics, and by the way, you happen to show up for work every single day, and you're disciplined, and you're exactly what we want in the manufacturing workforce. That guy now has this incredible career in manufacturing at one of our member companies. So it's a great question, and one that we all need to focus on.
One last question, and then we'll have to conclude. Identify yourself and pose your question, please.
First, thank you for your time. Thank you for the speech. It was great. My name's John Kirk. I work at 3M. You mentioned a couple of macro trends, and I have specific questions about the strengthening dollar. as well as the price of oil. How is that affecting U.S. manufacturing?
So we're out of time today. Yeah. It could be the two most talked about issues right now and two of the most controversial. So let's start with the price of oil. Obviously, it's a tale of two cities. So for companies like yours, it allows the lower price of energy does for consumers. It obviously frees up some additional spending money for consumers when they don't have to pay as much for a gallon of gasoline. It also helps as an input cost for manufacturers. It helps reduce the overall cost of doing business. And I actually think affordable and reliable energy supply is one of the reasons that we're seeing so many investments being made here in the United States, manufacturing investments, rather than around the world. It's a key input cost for manufacturers. The flip side of that, obviously, is it's causing some turmoil among our energy manufacturers. And I do believe, and I think that I share the view of those manufacturers, that this will balance out over time, that it's not a long-term issue for them, and we will hit equilibrium at some point. So I think we have to have a longer vision on that, and we have to understand that there will be fluctuations in commodities, and we have to accept the good with the not so good. The second thing we have to have a longer look on is currency and currency fluctuation. And it was just a few years ago that we were complaining about the weak dollar and what that meant, and today we're concerned about the strong dollar. There is no doubt that currency fluctuations have hurt our ability to export. That's one of the reasons why it's important to have free trade agreements, so that we get rid of tariffs, we have market access. That also helps to reduce the cost of exporting. But as far as currency fluctuations, that is going to occur globally. It is going to be a long-term issue that we're going to have to grapple with. It is a global issue. Our government has some tools to deal with that. They can cite certain countries for currency manipulation if that's the case. But when we're talking about free market principles being applied to currency pricing, if you will, those are challenges that we're going to be facing in the future, and we're very aware of that. We're hearing that from manufacturers. But I think our focus really needs to be on expanding our ability to export, expanding our ability to access new markets, getting rid of other costs to our exports.
So with that, Jay, we want to thank you for launching your State of Manufacturing tour here in Minnesota, and we have, in appreciation, manufactured for you this Economic Club paperweight.
Awesome.
Help me thank Jay Timmons.
Thank you.
The Economic Club of Minnesota's mission is to provide a world-class, nonpartisan forum for national and international leaders in business and public policy to discuss ideas that affect how Minnesota can better compete in the global economy. The Economic Club of Minnesota, engaging the world, strengthening Minnesota.